Yeah, so Brianna, I mean, it seemed to me watching that what was not said was just as important as what was said. I mean, as I think Annalise said, this is very much a campaign speech, but also in the way he framed a lot of issues. I think he's got a lot of attack lines that he's opened up for the Trump campaign around the economy, around the border, and so much else. Brianna, is that your impression as well?
Yeah, President Biden unfortunately shot himself in the foot with this speech. You know, the Constitution says that from time to time, the president will give an address on the State of the Union. And all President Biden had to do was get up on that stage and say to the American public, look, I know the State of the Union for you Americans. I know you can't put food on the table. I know gas prices are rising again. I know you cannot afford to pay your rent. I hear you, I understand you, and I'm going to work to address those problems. And instead, he gave us the perception that he's just completely divorced from reality because he got up there and lectured Americans about how great this economy is. And so many Americans who are dissatisfied with Biden, especially independent voters, they cite the economy as one of their biggest concerns. And tonight, Biden proved that he will not be able to address the issues that are plaguing the economy in the next few months, in the next 4 years, because he can't even acknowledge that they exist.
Well, indeed, and I mean, I think a lot of what we saw, and we'll talk about that in a moment, was a lot of promises to spray money around the economy, but that, of course, has its own problems. But I want to come back to this issue, Annalise, that you mentioned before, the fight between Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was wearing a MAGA hat and yelling out during the speech, calling on Joe Biden to say Laken Riley's name, and he couldn't even quite manage her name properly. Have a listen to this.
Not really. Laken Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself.
I mean, Annalise, this was all over the shop. He called her Laken Riley. I'm already seeing a lot of Republican Twitter accounts make a big deal about this. And then he used the I word, illegal, which, of course, is anathema to people on the left. Yeah, talk us through a little bit more about just how badly this particular bit of the speech landed.
Well, I also didn't quite understand the point he was trying to make when you say, well, thousands of illegals are here. And it's so that what the perception is that because the murders haven't gone up incrementally with the thousands of illegals here, that this is okay. This is an actual story that's really resonated with people. Even when we were in Colorado, we went to a candidates forum in the northeast of the state in a town called Holyoke. And one of the gentlemen there had written Laken Riley's name on the program because he said it was the only thing he wanted to hear an answer about, because it was just so distressing that this is a beautiful young woman who was out for a jog and studying nursing and just giving nothing but good to the world, and then this is how she dies in just such a hideous manner. So I think that was just kind of, it was ad-libbed, not successfully, is what I would say.
Yeah, and also just to go back over to the economy too, though, Brianna, Biden was bragging plenty about the allegedly surging economy. Have a listen to this.
America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record.
Now, Brianna, there was an awful lot of bragging in the speech about this whole idea of the middle out and top down and all this sort of geometry to the economy that he was talking about and saying, you know, inflation's coming down and things are coming down. But looking into the numbers, wages haven't kept up with inflation. Mortgages and rents are all up. This is all on Joe Biden's watch. Is he gaslighting the American people, Brianna, and telling them that the American economy is better when, you know, prices are clearly up? I know every time I go there, they seem more expensive than they were the last time.
Yeah, and one of the ways that he tried to appeal to Americans on the economy is he talked about the fact that there's not enough chips in the bags, right? That Snickers are actually smaller. And he thought that that would appeal to them and make them believe that Joe Biden is tackling the issues about the economy that matters. Look, when he spoke about inflation, he said it went from 9% to about 3%, which is true. But what he failed to mention is that when he took office, it was 2.8% or 1.8%, right? So he doesn't mention the fact that it was his administration that saw the rise in inflation. He talks about job growth. Look, first of all, the job numbers keep getting adjusted every single month. Second of all, one of the biggest sectors in the American market that grew jobs is the government. Okay, we're not talking private sector jobs that spur more jobs. We're talking about expanding Big Brother. And most importantly, a majority of the job growth that we've seen under Biden is just jobs that came back after Democrats decided to clamp down on one of the most successful economies we had under President Donald Trump.
Yeah, indeed. And Annalise, too, another issue that I thought was absolutely shot straight square at the base here was this whole question of reproductive rights, and that they clearly, the Democrats, Joe Biden, want to fight hard on this idea of coming back to Roe v. Wade, making that law, and, you know, all these stories about IVF and abortions and things of this nature. Is this, I mean, it is very much a base issue for the Democrats, but is this also an attempt to make this sort of issue kind of neutralize some of the safety and security issues that also might be troubling suburban women around, you know, Laken Riley, migration, crime, and things like that? Have a listen to what the president had to say.
It's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. When reproductive freedom was on the ballot, we won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
Annalise, this is a direct pitch to the female vote, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and it is successful for Democrats in a lot of ways. He's not wrong when he says that this has been an election winner for the Democrats, especially in 2022. And I think this is why we've seen Donald Trump soften a lot of his rhetoric around this. We saw Nikki Haley even kind of equivocating on it because it is a toxic issue for women. They don't want these kind of interventions. The IVF ruling in Alabama, which essentially saw in vitro fertilization, the embryos classified as children, and it meant that IVF procedures couldn't happen because those clinics couldn't bear the legal responsibility of anything going wrong with an embryo transfer and being held liable for murder. And that was so emblematic how that passed through the Congress so quickly to try and fix this, because this is not a left-right issue. This is a male-woman issue for a lot of women, and there were a lot of Republican women who came out and spoke in defense of IVF, and the overlap is really stark for a lot of women. So I think that is a direct appeal. They know that that's a vote winner for them, and they know that that encourages women to get out and vote when they otherwise wouldn't, because we saw that at the midterms, that the voter turnout increased among those women, and that was a big issue for them, and that would override their concerns about other things like foreign policy.
And speaking of foreign policy, Brianna, one more divisive issue here, obviously, the Israel-Hamas war. Now, Joe Biden had an awful lot of tough talk around Hamas, tougher than I would expect a Democrat president to say these days. But he also made this bizarre pledge to build a kind of a temporary pier or port at Gaza to aid the Palestinian people in Gaza who are at war with an ally of the United States, Israel. Now, strategic and security people say this is really fraught with all sorts of problems, but Brianna, the question for you is, does this suggest that the Israel issue is really hurting Joe Biden with the hard left and with Arab Americans in key states like Michigan?
President Biden is about to sleepwalk the United States into a military conflict just to win an election. You know, what's concerning about this is that, first of all, this isn't an infrastructure issue that Gaza is facing. It's a leadership issue, right? Their leaders are Hamas. Second of all, you know, you have polls coming out. 3 out of 4 Palestinians support what Hamas did on October 7th. Those people do not deserve United States tax dollars going to build a pier. And more importantly, I'd urge President Biden to go back to 1983. He was alive. He was in office at that point. Look, when the United States went over to Beirut, they were there for peacekeeping missions to keep Palestinians and Syrians safe. And you had Hezbollah terrorists blow up the barracks. They killed, 241 Marines, U.S. Marines, because the terrorists said, look, if you're on our land, we don't care what you're doing here, you're going to be killed, right? And so the fact that we're going to put a pier there, and even though Biden says there's not going to be boots on the ground, he also told us the Afghanistan withdrawal was going to go, smoothly and fine.
Yeah.
And we lost wounds.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Brianna. It's a whole host of issues and trouble that he's opening up